Welcome to a special edition of FYI, looking at the amazing life of Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II. When Buckingham Palace announced that the Queen had died, you'll have noticed flags on official buildings flying at half-mast, radio stations playing respectful music, TV stations changing their schedules, and for many of us, life has slowed down, even stopped. This is because, as a nation, we've entered a period of mourning. While the royal family are coming to terms with the loss of a mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, they're also mourning the loss of their queen. And they invite us to unite with them, because of course, she was our queen as well. Braden looks back at the life of our longest reigning head of state.
Princess Elizabeth was just 25 years old when she became Queen Elizabeth II, the 39th sovereign to be crowned. The coronation made television history, as it was the first ever to be on TV. Her Majesty's place on the throne came sooner than anyone expected. Although it was a very joyful occasion, her journey from princess to queen was a difficult one. Elizabeth Alexandra Mary Windsor was born in 1926. Her parents were Prince Albert, the Duke of York, and Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon.
Happy feet, I've got those happy feet.
Her family called her Lilibet when she was young. She loved horses and got her first pony for her 4th birthday. Elizabeth and her younger sister played games, learned the piano, and dressed up for plays like other children of the time. But the princesses didn't go to school. They had lessons at home.
A last tribute to a great king, a great and honoured man, the father of an empire.
When her grandfather, King George V, died in January 1936, his son Edward, who was Elizabeth's uncle, became king. Well, he didn't stay in the job for long.
A few hours ago, I discharged my last duty as king and emperor.
Edward wanted to marry an American woman, Wallis Simpson, who had already been married and divorced. But in those days, that just wasn't allowed in the royal family, so Edward chose love over duty. Edward stepped down from the job of king, and the crown was passed to his younger brother, Albert, Elizabeth's father. Albert adopted his father's name and became King George VI, and now Elizabeth was unexpectedly next in line to the throne. When World War II broke out in September 1939, many children were evacuated to safety, but not the princess. When Elizabeth was 14, she gave her first speech on the radio. She sent her best wishes to children who had been evacuated from the cities to the safety of the countryside.
Thousands of you in this country have had to leave your homes and be separated from your fathers and mothers. My sister Margaret Rose and I feel so much for you, as we know from experience what it means to be away from those we love most of all. It is just because we are not forgetting you that I want to send you our love and best wishes, to you and to your kind hosts as well.
When she turned 18, she begged her father to allow her to take part in the war effort. Eventually, he allowed her to train as a mechanic and military truck driver. She remains the only female member of the royal family to serve in the military. At 21, Elizabeth had fallen in love. She married the Duke of Edinburgh on November 20th, 1947, in Westminster Abbey. In the early 1950s, the King's health was not good. When Elizabeth was just 25, her father, King George VI, died, and her life would change forever. Elizabeth II's role was mainly ceremonial, representing our country abroad and hosting foreign leaders. As a democracy, we elect a government to make the big decisions. She was also head of the Commonwealth, an association of countries that sign up to creating peace and prosperity, made up mainly of the countries that used to be ruled by Britain. Elizabeth remained Queen of 16 of those countries, including the UK. The Queen's role was mainly to support the nations she ruled, a role she took very seriously, supporting hundreds of charities and organisations. Even though the Queen could never interfere with how the country is run, every week she discussed government business with the Prime Minister. Those meetings took place with a total of 14 Prime Ministers, from Winston Churchill to Boris Johnson. And just before she died, she met the new Prime Minister, Liz Truss. Her Majesty received about 60,000 letters every year. Can you imagine receiving that much post? And many people know that the Queen's favourite dogs were corgis. She owned more than 30 throughout her lifetime. Family was extremely important to the Queen. As well as having 4 of her own children, she leaves behind 8 grandchildren and 12 great-grandchildren.
In our lives, Mr. President, we have seen the worst, but also the best of our continent.
Instead of retiring when most people do, the Queen continued to work. Although she cut down a bit on her official duties and engagements, she never stopped meeting with politicians or the Prime Minister of the time to keep across how the country was being run.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and the service of our great imperial family to which we all belong.
Although she was one of the most famous people in the world, the Queen was a very private person who kept her opinions to herself. Her position as head of state was largely symbolic, and our elected government has the real power. But while politicians come and go, the royal family keeps alive a sense of history that attracts millions of tourists, and the Queen was dedicated to supporting her country any way she could. Some FYI viewers wanted to have their say on why the Queen was so important to them.
I love the fact that Queen Elizabeth was able to keep with traditions in the royal family, but also adapt with the times of society. And she was able to introduce laws on saying that princesses could be put above princes in the line to the throne if their age permitted it.
The average retirement age is 65, and she served the country for years after that and had remained mentally and physically active to carry out her duties. I personally think that that's amazing.
I remember there was one time during the Olympic ceremony where they pretended that the Queen jumped out of a helicopter, and I think it's little things like that that just go to show that the Queen is going to be remembered by so many different things. So not just being the Queen and having a responsibility, but also humorous points such as that.
You know, even every year with her Christmas messages, that was something that would always bring a smile to everyone's faces, no matter what was going on.
That I wish you a very happy Christmas.
From stepping up to the biggest and hardest job in the world, aged 27, she's never stepped a foot out of line.
Something that I will always remember about the Queen was when William and Kate got married. She was there on the balcony, smiling as a grandmother. She was really proud, and it was really nice to see that, you know, on TV, that not only was she a queen, but she was also a grandmother, and she was talking with everyone. I think it was really sweet.
Some of us might be upset that the Queen has died, even though we didn't know her or have even met her. Here's FYI's counsellor Anna Williamson on why we may be feeling the way we do. Hi.
Hi.
So why are so many of us upset when we didn't even know her?
So if it does feel a bit strange to you that you're feeling sad about the Queen passing away because you never really met her, and if anyone says to you, well, that's strange, you know, you shouldn't be feeling those feelings because you didn't know her. That's false. It doesn't mean that you can't feel emotion. We can feel emotion as a country. We can also feed off other people's emotion around us. So if someone else is feeling sad, if a whole country is feeling sad, then you know what? We probably would be feeling a little bit sad as well. So it is a sad time, and it's important to remember that when someone dies, when someone passes away, it's important to process how those feelings are, and just to sit with them, give yourself time, give yourself kindness, and do whatever it makes you feel content in processing those. So if you want to talk about the Queen, if you want to ask questions about the Queen, do it. Ask it from people that you care about and that know you, and just be reassured that however you are feeling right now is perfectly okay.
For most of us, we only saw the Queen on TV, or a passing glimpse while standing in a crowd. But what was it like to properly meet the Queen?
Well, the Queen was coming to the Science Museum that day. It was a new exhibition called Top Secret. It had like codes, Morse code machines. The Queen was also writing her first ever Instagram post and posting it, but it was so funny because her phone was connected to this big screen, so everyone in that entire hall could just see what she was writing and when. Before we met the Queen, we did a really fun coding exercise. We coded different lights that would, if we moved away, get darker, if we moved towards it, lighter, and then that's actually what we showed the Queen. And it was really funny because whenever anybody came up the stairs, we would all smarten up, sit up straight and think it was the Queen. And it happened about 10 times before she actually came in.
No, I think it was like 15.
Yeah.
When the Queen finally came, we were like, oh, it's just gonna be like another camera person. So
Yeah,
we just
so we
like,
didn't get ready
we sort of
anymore.
like just slumped down like in our chairs like, oh, it's fine, nothing's gonna happen. But then the Queen
was the
But
Queen.
then the Queen walked in with like 5 bodyguards behind her in front of her, and we were like, oh, just
And then we
like,
suddenly did it in
smooth out
like
your
1
skirt.
second.
When the Queen came over, she asked us like a couple of questions like, how does it work? And one of them was if she could have a go. And
she
like
tried it out herself, which is really, really cool.
yeah, like she held what we were holding. At that moment, you could see a separate side to the Queen.
She didn't seem above us all, in a way.
Yeah, she didn't act as though she was like VIP. She's very humble.
The Queen was visiting Coram. It was their 350th birthday. Coram is a charity that helps young people who don't have a mum and dad. And luckily, I was like the lucky person to actually talk to her and hand her a book. And it was really exciting. I was going to London and it was quite fun. She's the most important person in the world because she's Queen of England and Queen of a lot of other countries as well. Before I met the Queen, I was feeling anxious about like messing it up. I was practicing giving the book to my mum, pretending she was the Queen and asking her questions. My first impression was I thought she would be much taller, but she wasn't. She was only this big. I thought she was going to be quite formal, but she was really chatty and sweet and like a little nan. The question I asked the Queen is, what was your favourite country out of everywhere you've been to? She said, I've been to too many places I cannot possibly say. She was a bit nervous to say a country because people would be like, that's not fair. A lot of people have not met the Queen, and it was like an important thing. I was so excited and happy and shocked she was actually there.
As the most well-travelled monarch in the world, the Queen represented Britain in visits to 117 different countries, flying the equivalent of 42 times around the globe. But she never actually needed a passport. She was the Queen after all. At home and abroad, she supported over 600 charities and organisations and was the first to do the famous royal walkabout. We leave you with images of her incredible life. Bye!